Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going to be looking into nuclear arms control and disarmament.
Yeah.
Big topic. If you're prepping for the UPSC exam, this is a big one in international relations.
Oh, absolutely.
But, even if you're not taking any exams, this is one of those things that's
Yeah.
really important for understanding global security.
Yeah. It's a big one.
So we've got a ton of material to go through.
We do.
We're going to try to pull out the most important and interesting pieces.
Yeah. I think we can do that.
Yeah.
Lots of interesting stuff here.
So we're going to be exploring the strategies behind arms control
Okay.
and how that's different from disarmament.
Right.
And we're also going to try to figure out why this has been such a challenge.
Yeah. It's been decades.
Yeah.
And we still haven't quite figured it out.
Yeah, we're going to be looking at treaties like the NPT.
Right.
And what are the challenges posed by places like Iran and North Korea?
Yeah. Those are big ones.
Big ones.
Lots of interesting insights into their ambitions.
Yeah. And what it all means.
Yeah, exactly.
It's going to be a thought-provoking deep dive, I think.
Yeah, it is.
For sure.
So before we get too far into the weeds with all these treaties and rogue states and all that,
Yeah.
what's the difference between arms control and disarmament?
Right.
These get thrown around all the time, but I think it's good to just
Yeah, for sure.
make sure everyone's on the same page.
Absolutely. Arms control is really about managing the problem.
Okay.
So, think of something like the Partial Test Ban Treaty back in '63.
Okay.
It didn't completely eliminate nuclear testing, but it did move it underground.
Okay.
So limiting the immediate environmental damage.
Yeah.
So that's arms control. In action disarmament, on the other hand, seeks the complete elimination
Oh, wow.
of weapons.
Okay.
So a much harder goal to achieve.
So arms control is like, I don't know, setting speed limits in disarmament is like getting rid of cars altogether.
That's a great analogy, yeah.
Okay. Exactly.
So if arms control is about managing the problem,
Right.
how effective has it actually been? Have we made any progress?
Yeah. Well, there have been some significant achievements,
Okay.
especially during the Cold War. Think of the Non-Proliferation Treaty.
NPT?
The NPT. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's been absolutely vital in preventing the spread of nuclear weapons,
Yeah.
especially among developed countries.
But that hasn't stopped countries like India and Pakistan, right?
True.
They both tested back in '98.
Right.
Big
Big deal, yeah.
shock to the system.
Definitely shook things up.
Yeah, so the NPT's got some limitations,
It does.
it seems like.
And it really highlights this tension
Yeah.
in international relations.
Okay.
This pull between national security interests
Yeah.
and these collective security agreements.
Right.
So countries often will prioritize their own defense needs,
Yeah.
even if it means going against these international agreements.
So we've got this tension between national and collective security.
Yeah.
Are there other reasons why arms control has been so difficult?
Right.
Is it just about countries not wanting to give up their weapons?
It's much more complicated than that.
Okay.
Think about this concept of the security dilemma,
Okay.
where one country's efforts to increase their security,
Okay.
like by building up their nuclear arsenal,
Yeah.
that can be perceived as a threat by others.
Right.
And so then it leads to this spiral of escalation.
Right.
So it's this dangerous game of trust
Yeah.
with incredibly high stakes.
Yeah.
Plus, just getting multiple powerful nations to agree on limitations is incredibly difficult.
It's like everyone's playing chess trying to stay one step ahead.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
And then you add in the challenge of dealing with rogue states.
Oh, yeah.
Our source material mentions Iran and North Korea specifically.
Yeah.
These countries often act outside established norms and agreements.
Right.
So it adds a whole other layer of complexity to the situation.
Speaking of rogue states, what are we worried about with Iran and North Korea? The
Right.
source material makes it seem pretty tense.
Yeah, well, concerns about Iran's nuclear program are mostly about regional stability.
Okay.
So the fear is that a nuclear-armed Iran could trigger an arms race
Oh, yeah.
in the already volatile Middle East.
Makes sense.
And then with North Korea,
Yeah.
the concerns are more about their unpredictable leadership
Oh, yeah.
and their willingness to engage in these provocative actions,
Yeah.
like missile tests that rattle their neighbors
Yeah.
and even, reach across the Pacific.
The stuff in North Korea is pretty wild.
It is.
They left the NPT.
Yeah, back in 2003.
They resist all the diplomatic pressure.
Yep.
And they just keep developing their nuclear program.
Yeah, they do.
It's a tense situation.
It is. But it is important to consider their perspective as well.
Right.
Their motivations are complex.
Okay.
They see their nuclear program as a deterrent,
Okay.
as a way to guarantee their survival in a world where they feel very threatened and isolated. So understanding those motivations,
Yeah.
even if we don't agree with them,
Right.
is crucial for finding peaceful solutions.
So it seems like arms control is really complicated.
It is.
Influenced by national security, the security dilemma,
Right.
and countries that don't play by the rules.
Yeah.
A lot to consider.
It is a lot to consider. And it's important to remember
Yeah.
that this isn't just some kind of abstract
Yeah.
theory
Right.
or, international relations jargon.
Right.
This is real world stuff
Yeah.
with potentially devastating consequences.
Yeah. It's a good reminder of the stakes
It is.
involved.
Yeah, and it highlights the need for continuing this dialogue and diplomacy
Yeah.
and a commitment to finding peaceful solutions to this really pressing challenge
Yeah.
facing humanity.
Huge challenge,
Huge challenge.
for sure. We've been talking about this tension between a country's own security needs
Right.
and the need for global cooperation.
Yeah.
Are there any real-world examples
Oh, yeah, there are.
where we can see that playing out?
Absolutely. The relationship between India and Pakistan
Oh, wow.
is a fascinating case study.
Okay.
You've got these two nuclear-armed neighbors
Right.
with this history of conflict,
Yeah.
and yet they've managed to avoid a full-scale war.
Since they both got nuclear weapons.
Since they both got nuclear weapons.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Despite all that animosity, there's a certain level of caution
Right.
in their relationship.
There is.
Is that because of the nukes?
Well, some experts would argue exactly that.
Okay.
That, this fear of mutually assured destruction,
Right.
maybe.
Yeah, we talked about Meidi.
Right.
Yeah.
That acts as a deterrent.
Okay.
It forces both countries to be incredibly careful about escalating tensions.
So the potential for nuclear devastation
Right.
is actually what's keeping the peace.
Potentially. Yeah.
It's a weird thought.
It is a complex idea.
Yeah.
And a controversial one.
Yeah.
But it highlights how nuclear weapons introduce this new element. Okay.
Into international relations.
Right.
This unpredictable element.
Yeah.
It's a situation where the most destructive weapons ever created
Yeah.
could actually be contributing to a fragile stability.
Yeah. I mean, if this balance of terror can work between rivals like that,
Yeah.
why hasn't it led to more cooperation on disarmament?
That's a good question. And that's really where the complexities of international relations come in.
Right.
It's not just about the weapons themselves. It's about trust. It's about diplomacy.
Okay.
It's about a willingness to see things from the other side's perspective.
And that kind of brings us back to this idea of,
Right.
not using terms like rogue state when
Yeah.
we're dealing with places like North Korea.
Right.
It feels like that just makes things more difficult.
It can be counterproductive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Labeling a country as a rogue state
Yeah.
often closes the door to dialogue,
Right.
and it makes it harder to understand their motivations.
Right. Fears, anxieties.
Yeah.
Which are crucial for finding peaceful solutions.
So even if we don't like what they're doing,
Yeah.
we need to understand why they're doing it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Every nation acts in what they perceive to
Right.
be their own best interest.
Right.
So understanding those interests,
Yeah.
even if we don't condone the methods,
Yeah.
is the first step towards building trust and finding some common ground.
International relations are messy.
They are.
There's a lot of gray area.
Lots of gray area.
Got to work through it.
Yeah, you do.
Well, our source material also talks about this other
Yes.
approach
Right.
to dealing with nuclear proliferation,
Yeah.
missile defense systems,
Missile shield.
missile shields.
Yeah.
Now, this sounds pretty good on the surface, right?
Well, yeah, in theory.
Yeah.
It's a defensive measure, right? It's
Yeah.
a way to protect against attack.
Right.
So why would that be controversial?
Yeah. Why is that controversial?
Well, the controversy stems from a few issues.
Yeah.
Firstly, their effectiveness is debated.
Okay.
So critics argue that these missile defense systems are incredibly complex.
Okay.
They're expensive to develop,
Yeah.
and they can never be truly foolproof.
Right.
So even a single missile getting through
Yeah.
could have devastating consequences.
So you're putting all this money
Right.
into something that might not even work.
Exactly. And then there's the cost factor.
Okay.
These systems are astronomically expensive.
Yeah.
And, some argue that the money could be better spent on other security measures
Yeah.
or addressing the root causes of conflict.
So it's like, do you invest in this technology?
Yeah.
That might not even work.
That might not even work.
Or do you try to deal with
Or deal with the underlying
problems?
problem.
Yeah, exactly. And On top of that,
Okay.
there's the potential for these missile defense systems to actually increase tensions
Okay.
and make the world less safe.
But they're supposed to be defensive. Right. I mean, they're intended to be defensive.
Right.
But the deployment of these systems
Okay.
can be perceived as a provocative act
Oh, okay.
by other countries.
Right.
It can be seen as an attempt to gain a strategic advantage,
Yeah.
which could lead to an arms race.
Right. So everyone's trying to keep up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So even if the intention is defensive,
Right.
the act itself could be interpreted as aggressive,
Yeah.
leading to more mistrust and escalation.
So it's tough.
It is tough.
It's like you're trying to walk a tightrope.
Yeah.
With the fate of the world in the balance.
It is a delicate balance.
Yeah.
But this is where the lessons of history can
Yeah.
come into play.
Okay.
We can look back at past efforts
Right.
to control these weapons,
Right.
understand what worked,
Yeah.
what didn't work,
Yeah.
and apply those lessons to
Right.
the challenges we face today.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
What are some of those key moments in history?
Well, one of the earliest concerns was the environmental impact of nuclear testing.
Hmm.
You know, back in the 50s and early 60s,
Yeah.
atmospheric tests were releasing huge amounts of radioactive fallout,
Oh, wow.
with global consequences.
Yeah, this is a problem.
It was a problem that transcended borders,
Yeah.
affecting countries far beyond those actually conducting the tests.
I can't imagine what that must have been like.
It was a scary time, and it led to this growing international pressure
Okay.
to limit and eventually ban these kinds of tests.
Right.
And that pressure culminated in the Partial Test Ban Treaty of 1963,
Okay.
a significant step towards controlling those impacts,
So even in the Cold War,
even in the Cold War.
when things were really tense,
Yeah,
they could still come together
they did.
and agree
Yeah,
on something.
they did. It's encouraging, isn't it?
It is encouraging.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the end of the story, right?
Not quite. The Partial Test Ban Treaty, as the name suggests,
Yeah.
didn't ban all testing,
Okay.
only prohibited tests in the atmosphere, outer space,
Okay.
and underwater. Underground testing was still permitted.
So a step in the right direction,
A step in the right direction.
but not the final solution.
Not the final solution, but eventually
Yeah.
the international community did manage to negotiate
Okay.
a treaty to ban all nuclear testing.
Okay.
The Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty, the CTBT,
Okay, the CTBT.
negotiated in 1996,
Yeah.
and it aimed to ban all nuclear explosions regardless of location.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. Right?
Fair
It was a significant achievement,
Huh?
but it hasn't entered into force yet.
Why not? What's going on?
Well, the CTBT requires ratification
Okay.
by all 44 states listed in its Annex 2.
Okay.
So this includes all the states that possessed nuclear weapons
Okay.
or had nuclear research reactors.
Right.
At the time the treaty was negotiated,
Yeah.
however, several key states,
Okay.
including the U.S., China, India, Pakistan, North Korea,
Big ones.
big ones,
Yeah.
have not yet ratified it.
So even though this treaty's been around
Right.
for over 25 years, it's still in limbo
It's in limbo.
because of these countries.
Exactly. It really highlights how challenging it can be
Yeah.
to get everyone to agree
Yeah.
on these arms control measures.
It seems like even when something's good for everyone,
Right.
it's still hard to get everyone on board.
It is, national interests often trump
Yeah.
these global goals,
Yeah.
even when dealing with something as critical as nuclear weapons.
We keep coming back to this tension
We do.
between what's good for one country
Yeah.
and what's good for the whole world.
Well, and what's good for the whole world, you've hit on
Yeah.
a fundamental dilemma in international relations.
Yeah.
Reconciling those competing interests
Yeah.
is a constant struggle.
It's tough.
It is tough, but it's a struggle we can't give up on.
We can't give up.
No.
So what can we learn
Right.
from all these historical efforts
Right.
to control and limit nuclear weapons?
Well, I think history shows us that even during these times of tension and mistrust, international cooperation is possible.
Okay.
I mean, the Partial Test Ban Treaty
Yeah.
is a great example of that.
Yeah, it's good to remember that even during the Cold War,
Right.
they could still find common ground
They could.
on something like that.
Exactly. And it suggests that even when you're dealing with adversaries,
Okay.
there's always that possibility
Okay.
for dialogue and progress.
Yeah.
However difficult it might seem,
It's a long process.
it is a long process.
And sometimes it's fragile.
It is fragile. The CTBT is a good example of that.
Yeah, it's been around for a while, but
It's been around, but it's not fully in effect.
not fully in effect.
So it's a reminder that achieving lasting change
Right.
requires persistence. patience,
Yeah.
a willingness to overcome all these obstacles.
And maybe the biggest lesson
Yeah.
is that arms control isn't just about the treaties.
Right.
It's about building trust.
Yeah.
It's about communication.
Absolutely.
It's about dealing with the root causes of all these conflicts.
It's about changing mindsets.
Yeah.
Shifting perspectives,
Mm-hmm.
and recognizing that true security doesn't come from stockpiling weapons.
Yeah.
It comes from creating a world where cooperation and diplomacy prevail.
You said it perfectly.
Well, thank you.
Arms control is a human challenge,
It is.
not just a technical one.
That's right.
Well, this has been a fascinating look
Yes.
at the history
Yeah.
of arms control.
Yeah.
All the challenges and complexity
So complicated.
involved.
It is.
Yeah.
But it's important.
It's important.
Yeah.
We've seen how national interests clash with global goals
We have.
and how even these agreements can be really difficult to
Oh, I
get
wish
done.
I'd be tough.
Yeah, but we've also seen that progress is possible,
Yes.
even when it seems impossible.
That's right.
And I think that's a message of hope
It is a message of hope.
that we can take with us.
Yeah.
As we continue this deep dive,
Yeah.
we've talked a lot about the complexities of arms control, all the history, the challenges, the wins and losses. It's a lot to take in. But how do we actually make the world safer? Reduce that threat of nuclear war? Are there any paths forward that give us some hope?
There are definitely paths forward, and our source material highlights a few key approaches.
Okay.
One of the most obvious is strengthening existing arms control agreements
Yeah.
and working towards new treaties
Okay.
that address emerging threats.
So like taking what we got, like the NPT,
Right.
and making it stronger, or are we talking about brand new agreements?
Both, actually.
Right.
The NPT, while it was a landmark achievement,
Yeah.
it's over 50 years old.
Wow.
The world has changed a lot since then.
Right.
There are new technologies, new geopolitical realities
Yeah.
that the treaty just doesn't fully address.
Right.
So updating it to reflect these changes could be really crucial.
Makes sense. We also talked about the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty.
Right, the CTBT.
Yeah, that hasn't actually gone into effect.
Right,
Because some countries haven't ratified it.
exactly.
Is there any realistic chance of getting those holdouts on board?
It's a tough challenge,
Yeah.
but diplomatic efforts are ongoing.
Okay.
Getting the CTBT into force would be a huge symbolic victory.
Right.
It would send a clear signal
Okay.
that the international community is serious about ending nuclear testing,
Okay.
which is, crucial for preventing further development and proliferation of these weapons.
So updating old treaties and pushing for new ones is one path.
Yeah.
What else can we do to make the world safer?
Another really crucial strategy is reducing the global stockpile of nuclear weapons.
Uh-huh.
The US and Russia, they hold the vast majority of these weapons.
Yeah.
They have made some progress in reducing their arsenals since the Cold War,
Okay.
but there's still a long way to go.
It just seems like common sense.
Right.
Fewer nukes,
All right.
less risk of them being used.
It seems straightforward, but it's not just about the numbers.
Okay.
It's also about making sure that these reductions are verifiable and irreversible.
Right. So we don't end up back where we started.
Exactly.
Well, building trust and transparency is really important.
Yeah.
It's essential.
Countries need to feel secure to give up those weapons.
They need to feel safe enough to reduce their reliance on those weapons.
Yeah. And that takes us back to what we were saying earlier
Right.
about dealing with the root causes
Yes.
of conflict and insecurity.
Absolutely. Countries don't develop nuclear weapons in a vacuum.
Right. It's not random.
Right. They do it because they feel threatened.
Okay.
Whether it's by their neighbors, by regional instability, by global power dynamics.
It's like that saying,
Yeah.
if you're holding a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Exactly.
If a country's only tool is a nuke,
Right.
every problem looks like something that needs to be nuked.
That's a great analogy.
So we need to address the root causes
We do.
of all these problems.
We have to address those underlying drivers of conflict, whether it's historical grievances, territorial disputes, competition for resources, political instability.
So promoting peaceful conflict resolution,
Right.
fostering economic development,
Right.
addressing human rights concerns.
Absolutely. It's about creating a world where countries feel secure enough to cooperate,
Yeah,
where they don't see nuclear weapons as their only option.
it's a big goal.
It is.
It's about creating a world where peace and security aren't based on this threat of mutually assured destruction.
Right.
It's about mutual respect, understanding a commitment to shared goals.
Well said.
But it also seems incredibly difficult.
It is challenging, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But think about the alternative.
Right.
A world where nuclear weapons continue to spread,
Yeah.
where the risk of accidental or intentional use grows every year.
Right.
That's a future we have to work to avoid.
So where do we as individuals fit into all of this?
Right.
What can we do?
Well, I think first and foremost, we can educate ourselves.
Okay.
The more we understand about these complex issues,
Right.
the better equipped we'll be
Right.
to have meaningful conversations and advocate for change.
Knowledge is power.
It is.
You got to understand the issues.
Exactly. We can also support organizations
Okay.
that are working towards nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation.
Okay.
There are so many dedicated groups and individuals out there making a real difference.
Yeah.
And our collective support can really amplify their efforts.
So we can use our voices
Yes.
and our resources
Absolutely.
to support the people who are working on this.
Exactly. And finally, and perhaps most importantly,
Okay.
we can promote a culture of peace and understanding in our own communities.
Yeah.
We can challenge those narratives that demonize other countries
Yeah.
and fuel conflict.
Right.
We can build bridges of understanding and empathy.
We need to remember that we're all human.
We do. We're all in this together.
Yeah.
We're all facing this common threat.
This has been a really thought-provoking
It has been.
deep dive
Yes.
into nuclear arms control and disarmament.
Absolutely crucial topic.
We've gone through all the history, all the challenges, the potential solutions.
Yeah.
If you're prepping for the UPSC exam, this is definitely going to help you
Absolutely.
solidify your understanding of this topic.
It's a big one for the exam.
But even if you're not facing an exam,
Right.
this is something that everyone should know
It's essential knowledge.
to understand the world we live in.
It is.
So as we wrap up, I just want to encourage everyone listening
Yeah.
to keep learning about this stuff.
Yes. Keep exploring these issues.
And have these conversations.
Have those conversations.
And advocate for change.
Advocate for a world free of nuclear weapons.
Even small actions can make a difference.
They can.
We can educate ourselves. We can
Mhm.
support the people doing this work.
Yeah.
We can promote peace.
Absolutely.
We can work towards a safer and more secure future.
Well said.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you found it informative and inspiring.
I hope so.
And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode
Yeah. Spread the word.
with your friends. Until next time, keep those brain cells firing.